When you sit down and really think on something long enough, you start to get a better appreciation for things, and this game is no different. Kingdom Hearts 358 Over 2 Days, one of the more divisive and or misunderstood titles in the Kingdom Hearts series, in my humble opinion. Now, while I say misunderstood, I mean misunderstood in the fact that a lot of Kingdom Hearts fans, specifically the newer side of the fan base that only got to experience Days through the collection, were again only able to experience the quote-unquote game of 358 Over 2 Days through the movie, and really only got a small taste of what 358 Days Over 2, or however you want to pronounce it, actually is. Am I saying the movie doesn't do a great job in accurately portraying what's in the DS game? Well, half of me believes that, while the other half does not. The movie version of 358 Over 2 Days does a great job in doing what most of us think it's there to do, to tell the entirety of the day's story in about 3 hours so that the players are able to get the main story points so that they are prepared for the titles after, more specifically Kingdom Hearts 3, as that is currently the end goal for that saga. In that regard, the movie does exactly what it's meant to and does a relatively good job. Unfortunately, that brings an underlying problem. Because the movie is just a collection of cutscenes from the DS game, there is also a bit left out that really help flesh out the main and side characters in the story. It gives them more life, as it were. Not just in terms of missing cutscenes either, but the gameplay of Days also contributes massively to the overall story, characters, worlds, everything the game has to offer, really. Am I saying the gameplay is good? No, I'm not. But I can't blame new fans for not knowing because obviously you haven't played the game. And to a certain extent, I can't blame older fans that actually played the game either. Why? Because the way the gameplay works hand in hand with the story of 358 Over 2 Days is extremely deceptive. So deceptive, in fact, that a part of me almost believes it was done on accident. But no, I do believe now that the way the game was handled was entirely on purpose. Of course, I'm sure you wish to know how. Well, let's get into it. First, let's start off with how the gameplay works hand in hand with the story of the game. We start off as our main character, Roxas. Right off the bat, we don't understand who we really are or where we came from, only that we are now part of this organization of people, wink, that work day in and day out taking out Heartless in order to collect hearts in an attempt to gain our own. Seems pretty simple, I can dig it. In the beginning days, we take on some tutorial missions, learning the ropes of the game from some of the organization's members, until finally we are able to take on missions by ourselves, and boy oh boy, if the tutorials didn't give you any real practice, don't worry, because each and every coming day is going to be filled with nothing but go here, go see this place, go look at this crack in the ground, take out the Heartless, etc, etc. Each and every day is filled with bland and boring mundane tasks that Roxas, or us as the player, have to deal with all the time, not being able to just walk away and say no to the organization's leader, Xemnas. Though eventually we, or Roxas in this instance, gets paired up with another member of the organization named Axel. Axel, unlike all of the others Roxas has worked with up until this point, actually cares enough to invite him up for some ice cream after work on the clock tower. A welcome break in a seemingly endless string of boring days, the two eventually becoming good friends. Then later, after more weeks of doing the same boring missions, we meet the newest member of the organization named Xion, and eventually, much like what Axel first did for Roxas, Roxas takes Xion up to the clock tower to eat some ice cream together, the two eventually also becoming friends, and then later, all three characters, Roxas, Axel, and Xion, are pretty much inseparable. Now, if you were like me, whenever you had to go on a mission, you prayed with every fiber of your being that either Axel or Xion were with you. That was always me. I didn't want to be alone, not only because the missions were boring enough as is, but the fact that those two are the only friends we made, and through eating ice cream with them and connecting every day, their presence became almost like a necessity. And I figure if I as the player felt this way, I can only imagine how Roxas felt. If we were on a mission alone doing the same mundane tasks as always, we were pretty much on autopilot and our minds, at least in my case, starts to drift to other things, such as I wonder what my friends are doing, or I really want to finish this mission as fast as possible so I can go meet up with them at the clock tower. Already you can see the gameplay of 358 Over 2 Days is working extremely well with how the pacing of the story is set up. I would even argue that the pacing of how Days plays is among some of the best pacing of the series, though if you are just dreading the gameplay in general, along with the boring missions, it can be easy to miss with how well it works together, with how Roxas is living his day by day. This leads me to another point that I slightly covered about a minute ago, and it's how our minds work. As you play through Days, or even if you watch the movie, Roxas is a nobody, much like the rest of the Organization 13, except in his case, he cannot remember his past life before he was a nobody, so all these experiences he's going through, well, you have to realize that this is his first time dealing with life. He doesn't understand who he is, or where he came from. He doesn't have a grasp of what friendship is until he started his bonds with Axel and Xion, and even then his vision of friendship is just eating ice cream with them. More often than not, when you did finish a mission while playing the game, there would be cutscenes where Roxas would ask Axel about a ton of things that would be very obvious to literally anyone else, like what is a best friend and how is it different from normal friends? What does it mean to have a heart, and is it worth all this trouble trying to complete Kingdom Hearts? And even asked about love. Yes, I said love. Oh, and it goes without saying, but Xion is in the exact same boat as Roxas, except her case is a little more intense, to say the least. Which leads me to a big defining part of every character in Days that is only explored if you've played the game, which is the dialogue cutscenes. The dialogue scenes in Days is some of the best writing I have seen in a Kingdom Hearts game. Each and every character has so much more life and context to their character that really help define who they are and what they're all about. For example, while Roxas is learning the ropes in his beginning days of the organization, we see one-on-one moments with him and other members of the organization like Larxene, Marluxia, Vexen, and the like. Before Days came out, the only interactions we have had with these characters were through Sora and Riku in Chain of Memories. Seemingly nothing but harsh, evil, and sadistic-like characters at first, we see that they all have a more gentle side to them when it comes to training and teaching Roxas the ropes. Well, I say gentle, but Lexia straight up smacks Roxas in the face, and Larxene with her personality was also a bit harsh towards him, so besides those two, everyone gets some nice moments with Roxas. Though notice how I say nice and not meaningful, as if you're able to plainly see just before they are showing Roxas what to do, in the way the dialogue is written for them, it's obvious they aren't trying to make any deep connections with him like he has with Axel and Xion. The only reason they're even helping Roxas is due to the fact that Saïx, the one who normally looks over handing out missions, told them to do so in order for them to efficiently collect more hearts. They don't care Roxas is one of the new members. Heck, most of them don't even care that he can wield a Keyblade. This is just extra work for them so that their plans, and by their plans I mean Xemnas, can be completed as soon as possible. Nothing more and nothing less. Actually, an acquaintance of mine, Dan, aka King K, had created a retrospective of 358 over 2 days more than a year ago and said something along these lines that I very much agree with. When Roxas, and more to a point you, the player, go through these missions, the game really is trying its best to tell you this is work. It's not supposed to be fun, you need to do what you need to do because it's your job to do so. So when you have these personal moments with Axel and or Xion during a mission, the time spent together makes your work all the more bearable. Let's look at some examples. First would be the iconic scene where Roxas and Xion journey to Beast Castle in order to take out a Heartless for their mission, but this is also during a time where Xion is unable to summon her Keyblade. Roxas ends up wanting to lend his Keyblade to her, in which Xion replies, "But Roxas, what are you going to use?" Roxas then looks around and says, "I can improvise," then picks up a stick, which Xion then says, "Roxas, that's a stick." Not only is this scene hilarious, it does a great job in showcasing both characters' personalities and builds upon them. Another personal favorite moment of mine that was in the game but not very well showcased in the movie would be the time Axel and Roxas go to Neverland for a mission. At the beginning, Roxas tells Axel that he can fly, but of course Axel doesn't believe him one bit, until Tinkerbell helps prove Roxas right, and even then Axel still has his doubts. Roxas tells Axel to believe in him, in which Axel agrees and he starts to float. Axel then says, "I can fly." "I can fly?" And Roxas replies, "You can fly." It's moments like these that I absolutely adore to pieces. It gets me attached to these characters that otherwise I probably wouldn't care about all too much, kind of like the other members of the organization. Sure, I like them, characters such as Xemnas, Saïx, Xaldin, etc., but I don't know them like I do Axel and Xion. If something were to happen to the other organization members in the game's story, I wouldn't bat an eye, which is what I assume with the way the story was told was the point. The game doesn't want you to be close to those characters. It wants you to feel solitude when you're alone, and it wants you to be happy on the occasions that you're spending time with your friends. Also that when the inevitable suffering begins, it hits you like a bag of bricks. One thing that the movie does compared to the game that I can kind of commend is that it does a pretty good job of portraying the characters in the same way they are pretty much portrayed in the game. It's not perfect, mind you, but it did its best with what it is, a collection of cutscenes. While you do get more character development with Roxas playing the game, the movie pretty much shows you this is what this character is, and this is what you can expect. The same can be said for Axel, in my opinion. Better in the game? Of course, but is he portrayed bad in the movie? Not at all. Now, when it comes to Xion, I would say hands down that the game did her more justice than the movie ever could, and obviously that would be the case since you were spending 20 plus hours with her and the other star characters through interactions you otherwise would not be getting. When it comes to Xion, she is just as tragic as Roxas, if not a bit more. Through the game, Xion is asking the same exact questions as Roxas. Who am I? Where did I come from? Is what we are going to do going to be worth it in the end? But the main difference between her and Roxas, she is the first among the two to take action to find out these answers. Since all Roxas knows is that he wants his moments with his friends to last forever, he pretty much just accepts everything for what it is, just working day in and day out. Mix that with the fact that every time he tried to inquire about who he is and what he's doing there, Xemnas and to a lesser extent Axel would just give him an extremely short and vague answer. As long as he is able to come to the clock tower and spend time with Axel and Xion, that's all that matters to him. Xion, on the other hand, takes it into her own hands and tries to get answers to these questions, the curiosity gnawing at her. She evolves throughout the story of Days. At first, she's this lifeless puppet that is just following her orders. Then she meets her friends and starts to open up bit by bit, but then she gets to the point where she starts getting memories that don't belong to her, forcing her to delve deep into what she and Roxas are and straying further and further away from the organization's plans that they had for her. She ends up realizing that's exactly what they don't want her to do, but she does it anyway, for the well-being of her friends and her time with them. Most of these moments, by the way, again, are better showcased through the actual game since you have more time with her and everyone else. Oh, and quickly covering Axel, his case is much like every other character. His personality and motives are better showcased when you play through everything rather than just watch. I'd like to reference King K once again and his thoughts on Axel because they're 100% on the point. The special thing about Axel is that he has the privilege that the player does. He understands that no matter what he does, the only thing he can do is wait until Doomsday. He can try to avoid the tragedy that is bound to happen to his group of friends, but there really isn't much he can do. His hands are quite literally tied. Could he have spoken up about it to Roxas and Xion? Sure, but it would have just divided the group. Hell, it would have divided the group up more than already did in the actual game, and he tried his best there not to say anything, so do you get what I mean when I say his hands are tied? He would have been damned if he didn't, and damned if he did. And playing through Days and watching Axel slowly have to take in that fact that he's unable to do anything for their situation really killed me on the inside. He was, for the lack of better words, suffering in silence, and I am sure a lot of us get what that's like. Sitting here writing the basis for this video at 3:45 in the morning, as you can probably imagine, it gives me a lot to think about comparing the overall cutscene collection to the game itself. Did the movie make me evoke even a percentage of the same emotion that the game managed to do? It's hard for me to have a specific answer to this question due to the fact that it's just not that black and white. If I had to give you an answer by force, not really. Not really at all, actually. I feel as though the only reason I like the Days movie at all compared to the game is because I played the game in the first place. I have already experienced what was there, and I knew what was going to happen the entire time. If I was a newcomer to the series and my first introduction to Days was the movie, I would not care much at all for the characters that the series wants me to care for, those being Axel, Xion, and Roxas. Like I said near the beginning of this video, while I do believe the cutscene collection is a great way to go ahead and catch up on the story of Days as fast as humanly possible, you also can't expect people to resonate with this entry in the series as much as others who have actually played the game and experienced everything Roxas had in real time. Remember that moment when Roxas said he had enough and left the organization? Well, perhaps some of you do, while others don't. In the full game, as soon as Roxas decides he is finished with the organization and leaves, we are able to control Roxas's escape from the stronghold. As you progress, you have to fight nobodies as they are aware of what you are trying to do, and once you get to the last area right before you are free, you are stopped by Saïx. He stands in your way and tells you, "We don't accept resignations," in which Roxas replies, "I have nothing to say to you." Saïx then says, "Let's keep this short and sweet," and summons his weapon, and then you actually have a boss battle with Saïx. You fight him, and after you win, the next scene has no music or anything. The only thing that can be heard is him falling to the floor in defeat and Roxas' footsteps as he walks away. Now, can you imagine how annoyed I was when such a moment, such a scene was not included in the HD collection? When you leave moments like this out, you can see where a problem starts to occur, and there are plenty of scenes like it. And of course, I don't mean to blame the HD collection for not having every single scene from the game not be in the movie. When you're trying to compact 20 hours of raw gameplay and story into a 2.5 to 3 hour movie, it's to be expected, and you obviously can't expect the same type of experience otherwise. However, the scene like the one I just described to you, I believe could have easily been in to help put the watcher into a better headspace of what Roxas is feeling and what he's going through making such a tough decision like that, as opposed to not getting the scene at all. I could also go into detail about Shion's unfortunate death and the clash Riku has with Roxas, but I feel as though the movie did a good job in portraying those two scenes. They even went the extra mile and made an extra fight scene with Roxas going against Shion in the movie collection when they certainly didn't have to. Of course, all of the endgame stuff for Days hit harder with the game due to the gameplay working with the story, but for what the movie set out to do, I will say it accomplished the ending segments of Days pretty well, the exception being the Saïx scenario. So this is pretty much a first for me. Usually I create these types of videos to hopefully enlighten other people on things they probably didn't know, but for the very first time, this video has taught me something very important. I love Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days. I have found myself having much more respect for this game and everything it did and or tried to do than I have ever had. From its great characters to its themes of trying to find yourself, but also trying to change your fate, it resonates with me all too well. Sure, the gameplay is bad, but it works with the game. It works with how everything is laid out. There aren't too many games out there that are able to make something work well with another aspect that a lot of people that might pick up the game may view as outright bad and unredeemable at first glance, but actually complement one another. Don't get me wrong though, I have always liked the Days story, but never have I sat down and tried to understand its reasons for doing the things it did. If it wasn't for my recent playthrough of the game and the unique perspective I got from a couple of my friends, as well as my friend King K, I would not have been the same as I was before and saying things like, oh yeah, Days is good story-wise, but that gameplay, utter trash, nothing good about it at all, when in reality, it's actually so much more than that. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and perhaps learned as much as I did going through Days again. If I were to tell anyone new to the series whether to watch Days or play it, I would definitely recommend you try and play it if you have the means. Sure, the movie is good, but I truly believe you would be missing out otherwise. This was a treat to make, and I hope to make more videos just like this in the future. If you guys want to share your first experiences with Days or any thoughts about what was said in this video, whether you agree or disagree, I am all ears and will be waiting to talk to you guys in the comments. It's been Limit though. Again, I sincerely hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you guys again in the next one. Have a great day. Peace out.